Hey everybody, it's Matt. Doing a record ramble today. I want to talk about, let's do the Beach Boys' M.I.U. album. This is an album by a band that, if you've watched my channel, or if you've seen any of these in the past, you know I'm a big Beach Boys fan. Time after time, they're like a wave. They just kind of keep coming back into my life. I know that sounds corny, but they're just a band that I never really get sick of listening to. And I want to talk about the M.I.U. album because it has a lot of, takes on it. Many people have their thoughts about it, but I think it's actually kind of grown in some respect over time. Now, to be fair, I haven't been like a diehard Beach Boys fan for, since the 60s or anything. I'm clearly not of that age. I'm in my late 20s, and I've been a fan for about the last 4 years-ish. I mean, I'd say hardcore fan. Anyway, I want to talk about the M.I.U. album because when I was first getting into the band, I heard a lot of people talk about somehow M.I.U. would crop up as like this joke, like it almost had like a instant groan assigned with it, if you know what I mean. So the M.I.U. album, it's almost like the second people talked about it, there's like this kind of like, oh, M.I.U. Like it's somehow one of the worst Beach Boys albums. Now, everybody has their personal taste, and I will off the front say that like I don't think M.I.U. is the best thing the Beach Boys ever did. Not even one of the best albums of the 70s, but I think a lot of those late 70s albums get a lot of like unnecessary hate. It's more for what they are, it's more for what they're not, as opposed to what they are. Now, on its core, M.I.U. historically in the context, it was kind of a rough time for the band. There was a lot of fractures in the group between there was different factions in the group, and if you strip all that away, it's hard to do that in a way because that the context of what was happening ended up kind of affecting how this record was made versus what was on it versus what wasn't. And I don't want to get too much into it, but I do think it is necessary to bring up the idea of the shelved Adult Child album. That was an album that primarily Brian and Dennis and Carl worked on. I think at the time Alan was off doing something, I'm not entirely sure what. Mike was out of the country for a while, I think doing something regarding meditation or something along those lines. So while they were away, Brian kind of wanted to do his own thing and kind of make this follow-up to the critically well-received Love You, but an album that kind of seemed to alienate some fans. The Beach Boys' Love You. And Adult Child was going to be kind of a follow-up, and it was going to kind of focus more on, we all know Brian, he would kind of lock into one thing, but also try to make it all these different things at once. So it was going to be kind of a big band record. He was doing songs that he even wrote a song that he wanted Frank Sinatra to record. That didn't happen. And it is timely to bring that up because we know that We Got a Groove box set has come out about a month or so ago. And that is kind of like an official recognition by the Beach Boys that, Adult Child was a thing, and they've released pretty much all that material in the official channels, if you will. But instead of getting Adult Child, I think members of the band, especially Al and Mike, were very they were already a little bit alien. Like, Love You was not the direction, whether they were for it or against it, that was probably not the direction that they wanted the band to go. So they were kind of like nervous to say, hey, we're going to put out this album called Adult Child. And it's easy as fans to be like, oh, come on, how could they shelve that? This is great music. And it is. I love a great chunk of the material on Adult Child. But you do have to understand too, like they were already kind of in these wilderness years. They had a resurgence with the Endless Summer compilations and everything. Spirit of America. We're becoming more of a touring act again, more of a touring draw. Lots of people wanted to see them, and for better or for worse, they were making a lot of inroads with people based off their older material. So they didn't want to stray too far from that, and I get it. We would love to see Brian do his thing, and the band kind of all be engaged with that vision and be doing stuff that's a little more creative, right? But we didn't get Adult Child for lots of reasons, and so things got pivoted to this M.I.U. album. And now the M.I.U. album stands for Maharishi International University, which is a college in Iowa. I believe the town city is called Fairfield, Iowa. And it was just, their idea was that they were going to record this album at the college, you know, and already that kind of maybe raises some red flags, like, well, why are you doing that? What's the, you know, why not, you know, you had your own Brother Studios. I believe they still had Brother Studios in their possession at the time, so why are we going to Iowa to do this? But they did that and recorded some songs. There's some songs that already existed that kind of got resurrected and brought back to the fold. And listen, I personally enjoy M.I.U. album quite a bit. It's one of those albums that I think as a full album, it's a lot better than its parts, you know. There's some songs that people kind of raise an eyebrow at, that are kind of like, I don't know about this. But then there's some really strong songs, and those paired together, just the higher and the lows, they kind of mellow out to just a really nice album experience front and back. Again, I'm not saying this is like, the band was doing some things. I mean, there was some tension, like I said. But overall, I think this is an album that when I'm perceiving records now, it's less about rating. I do kind of give them an arbitrary score, but as someone who is such a fan of the Beach Boys, where I have a hard time, like, I know it's the cream of the crop, right? Objectively, but as someone who enjoys the band just as a I hate the term diehard, but is like a hardcore fan, I do see myself kind of leaning towards I like all the eras of the band. So M.I.U. is one of those albums where I don't think the whole album is like this masterpiece, perfect, 10 out of 10 album. It has a lot of songs I really enjoy. And if we're talking about albums I'm going to reach out of my stack, or, that I'm going to like listen to the most, M.I.U. is probably in that top half, to be honest. Honestly, at some points more than some of those 60s albums. Again, the 60s era is untouchable. I mean, most of that stuff is untouchable. But I just don't have this vehement hate against the M.I.U. album as certain people, as certain fans do. And I think it's actually quite a solid album. So let's kind of go through some of the highlight tracks, and then maybe down the road, if I do a more in-depth, track by track, I can actually do like I do certain albums where I go, track by track. But right now, this is just going to be kind of a cursory look, and who knows, it may turn into a full track review. But I do know the album starts, and by the way, this came out on Brother Records via Warner Reprise in 1978. Interestingly enough, this started out as a Christmas album. Warner, I believe, heard the Christmas tapes and they're like, Lee, you need to do something else. That said, also, at this time, they had I think they already had negotiations with CBS Caribou Records and already basically had a deal signed. So the writing was already kind of on the wall. They were doing an album for Warner, a final Warner album, as well as an inaugural album with CBS Caribou. Anyway, all that to say, we open the album with a nice kind of a punch. We open with the song She's Got Rhythm, and out of the gate, Brian is wailing this falsetto, for better or worse. You can tell that this is not the Brian of 1964. Brian of 64 had this perfect, dare I say perfect falsetto voice. That's not the case in 1977 to 78 when this was being released. A lot had happened to Brian Wilson, and it's reflected in him trying to hit that falsetto. Now, not to say it's bad, but it's definitely not the same falsetto of earlier Brian. And this song is just a fun, upbeat, kind of a rocker swing song. Just about, it paints this picture of, to me, like a party or like a social event, and you see this gal dancing on the floor, and you can just she's shaking, she's bouncing, everything's just a beautiful night dancing. She's got rhythm, she's got what I need. Lyrically so simple, but the production is so just joyous and not really boisterous, but it's just so enlivened with energy that I enjoy the track. Even though it might not be the technically best vocal song ever, it's such a fun song, and the way it goes from Brian's kind of grasping at this another level of falsetto to Mike's cool kind of swaggering delivery, it's a really nice opener, and I enjoy it for what it is quite a bit. I think track 2 is actually going to be kind of what actually ended up becoming a single for the band quite a bit later. Oh, let's go ahead and give She's Got Rhythm a gold star track. I do think it's worthy of getting a gold star status. Track 2 is a cover called Come Go With Me, which was an old doo-wop tune made popular by the Dan Lears. Now this feels like Beach Boys territory, right? You know, you got that great tight group vocal harmony. You've got Al turns in a great lead vocal. I mean, he's really got strength behind his voice. He's not doing anything flashy, but again, as per kind of Al's role in the band, he's just the great utility guy. He can kind of be wherever you need him to be, and he's going to always serve the song first. He's never trying to be this flashy guy, and the fact that he is so rock solid, it almost kind of stands out. It's like, well, there's Al Jardine, you know, keeping it clean as always. Anyway, great lead vocal. The take sounds joyous. It sounds fun. It's nothing like incredibly deep, but it's just a really fun production. And I love the "You never give me a chance." I love that. And this actually became kind of more of a hit for the band about 3 or 4 years later when they had a compilation called Endless Harmony. Was it Endless Harmony or 10 Years of Harmony? But there was a kind of a compilation of like the 70s material, and this kind of became a single from that album. So it had some legs down the road, and funnily enough, I don't think this was released as a single during the M.I.U. era or the M.I.U. Album cycle, but and maybe if it was, this album could have had a little more chart success, something to kind of have a hook. I think actually they released the first single was a song called Peggy Sue, which we'll get to next. Or actually we'll get to in a few tracks. But yeah, Come Go With Me is a great highlight of a track, and heck, I'm going to give it a gold star. So far we're batting 2 for 2, and I love it. Love the track, and it's it's maybe not one that I'm going to just like go out for like the Beach Boys covers. It might not be one that I just go out of my way to listen to like off the top of my head, but man, if you're playing M.I.U., it kind of gets you moving. It gets you feeling good. So that said, let's go to track 3. Now this is a controversial track even today, and I'm not going to try to defend it lyrically, but the song is called Hey Little Tomboy, and we all know if you're a Beach Boys fan and you hear that term, you're kind of probably getting red flags. You're getting those red sirens. And this track is a little controversial. Lyrically, it's about talking to a young girl saying, hey, it's time for you to stop being a tomboy and become more of a lady, to try to keep it as clean as possible, or to try to keep it as non-controversial as possible. That's what the track's about. But then you start, pulling back the onion a little bit, and you're realizing this is being sung by a bunch of hairy guys in their 30s talking about a young girl. Already you're kind of getting, don't like that. And the real shame of this song is that the musical backbone of this song, the track, is so catchy, and it's actually a really good track. It's upbeat, it's kind of peppy. You could imagine this with some different lyrics, and I think this would be actually like a really good song. But it's one of those things where I've kind of almost tuned out the lyrics, so they don't bother me as much as they should. But the second I'm in a car with somebody and we're playing Beach Boys, I'm going to probably have to instantly skip Hey Little Tomboy, because you have to kind of, and that's the fact that you have to say, well, you just have to understand the context. It's really hard to explain that away unless you just kind of know the story of the Beach Boys. Same way why there's a lot of tracks off of Beach Boys' Love You I wouldn't play. But most of those tracks I'd have an easier time explaining than Hey Little Tomboy. So all that to say, unfortunately, I want to give this a gold star track because I love the musical backtrack of it so much, but I don't think I can in good conscience with the lyrics. Just because I can get past the lyrics and tune them out, your average fan or your average person listening to the track can't. So for that, I'm going to stick to the ground rule of not giving this a gold star. So we don't need to talk about, speaking of Adult Child, this did come from the Adult Child sessions. And of all the tracks that survived from Adult Child to M.I.U., I'm really surprised this one did. I'm glad, again, musically I'm glad it did, but lyrically not so much. So track 4, let's get into Kona Coast. This one is a song that I don't think a ton of people, list very high on the album. This, like, if you were to rank the tracks on the album, this would probably be in the bottom half to bottom third. But I, for one, really do enjoy Kona Coast. It's got, again, I use this term on probably the last 3, but it's got a breezy feel. When Mike's talking about Kona Coast, it's a very rhythmic vocal performance. I love his delivery. I like kind of the country, almost country twinges. There's like a slide guitar, pedal steel. There's something in the background that kind of gives it this swinging, breezy feel. And I really like that. Almost like not Jerry Bird, but Jerry Bird was a slide player, and a lot of his music was kind of associated with Hawaiian music, And there is quite a through line between traditional Hawaiian music and then country. And that's why a lot of those country guys do play a lot of these, classic Hawaiian tinged music, or even Hawaiian folk songs. Now, that could be a whole nother discussion about, is that right, should they? But all that to say that this Kona Coast song kind of has that feel to me, and I never quite understand the dislike for it. I personally like it quite a bit. It's one that I listen to. I mean, it's all part of the album flow, so I really like it. Kona Coast, and it does actually have kind of a callback to Hawaii from Surfer Girl, and maybe that's why people don't like it, because it feels like they're leaning too much on the, hey, remember, the 60s, remember Hawaii, But I find it kind of charming, and I do like the track. I think, and again, another nice falsetto by probably either Brian, maybe Al. I'm guessing Brian. It sounds like Brian. So that's Kona Coast is a good track. Nice album track. Then we move on to what I think is the first single of the album, side one, Peggy Sue, which is, everybody knows Peggy Sue. That's like a classic rocker. I believe that was made famous by Buddy Holly. And kind of, part of you thinks, yeah, this kind of makes sense. In one sense, it's like, yeah, it makes sense for the Beach Boys to do it. And it's kind of like the beginning track of Beach Boys Love You is called Let Us Go On This Way. And it kind of opens up with this Carl, like, howling, this, like, whoa, But, that's kind of how this Peggy Sue feels like, kind of like a Love You track. But this is one that I just don't really go back to. It's fine on the album, and it's kind of a unique take on it, but to me it's a little ham-fisted, and it's not one that I just really need to ever hear. I mean, again, listen to M.I.U, I'm not going to skip it, but it's just, to me, it doesn't do a ton for me. But it's okay, it's fine. And then I believe track 6, I think we are going to get through side 1 on this one, funnily enough, is the song Won't You Come Out Tonight. And this is going to be kind of my dark horse gold star pick. Vocally, it's kind of like part of that whole my come back to LA thing, the dun 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 dun. Won't you come out tonight? I love it. It's kind of this simple song about, hey, just talking to the girl, hey, why don't you come out tonight? Let's have a ball tonight. Just a classic boy girl date song. But I love the rhythmic kind of dun 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 dun. Little girl, won't you come out tonight? They're playing our song. I love that. Really cool. It's got a nice quaint feel. It feels innocent. It doesn't feel like sleazy. It's kind of a goofy cornball song to some extent, but it's got a great melody. I love the chords. It's bouncy. Kind of fits nice, where it opens up with side 1 with She's Got Rhythm. This feels like a nice way to kind of end the side with that same kind of feel. A little more innocence, maybe a little less sleaze. And I really like the track. I think the vocals are great, and I think the turnaround from chorus to verse is great. Mike sings it well. Really enjoy this track. Enough to give it a gold star. So that's going to go ahead and do side 1 for M.I.U. I'm really surprised. I think I nailed that track list. I hope I did, because I said this was going to be more of a highlight thing. But we'll go ahead and do side 2 down the road, and we're gonna get right through this. But so far, pretty nice side 1. Nothing I'd really change. Maybe there's some songs that were available you could slot on there, but I kind of would still keep Hey Little Tomboy. My only change would be just get rid of those problematic lyrics, and I think you've got a stew going. So anyway, thanks for listening to these rambles, and we'll see you on the next one. M.I.U. side 2. Keep rocking, and we'll have a good day.